Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I am the Original Signal. Today we need to talk about something that happened to me last week whilst I was on vacation in the Bahamas. My rights were denied at the Nassau International Airport. So here's exactly how it went down. Okay, so we went down to the Bahamas for a vacation at the Atlantis Resort. Okay, and long before I ever set foot inside that airport to head home, meaning long before I ever set foot inside of the Nassau International Airport, I did my research and I checked the facts. I knew that this specific airport, the Lynden Pindling International Airport in Nassau, is a very specific type of airport. It's a very specific type of checkpoint. It is a U.S. pre-clearance terminal. Again, the airport at Nassau, Bahamas, is a U.S. pre-clearance terminal. What that means is that since you are standing inside this specific type of airport, your right as a U.S. citizen must be respected. And those officers are legally mandated to respect them and to respect your rights as a U.S. citizen. So why wasn't it respected? It says, federal law explicitly states that you are allowed to opt out of the biometric facial scan. Okay, it does not matter if you are standing in the standard line or if you are standing in the expedited line, even if you are using the mobile passport control app or the MPC app, you can still legally and rightfully so opt out of biometrics. If you change your mind, you can opt out unconditionally. Okay, you cannot be treated differently, penalized, or lose your place in line for doing so. Okay, you cannot face any consequences for opting out of biometrics. It does not matter if you're standing on the long ass standard line or if you're using a shortcut line like the MPC app. You can opt out. It doesn't matter. It's unconditional. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. I knew exactly what my protections were long before I even arrived at the airport. Okay. And then here's what happens. So part of my travel strategy involved using the official mobile passport control app. It's a digital shortcut that we are completely legally backed to use to answer custom questionnaires and bypass the standard 90-minute general passenger line so we can go straight into an expedited express line. So instead of waiting hours in line, you download this app, give them what they ask of you, and then it makes the lines at the airport much shorter, and I can attest to that. That is true. Okay, but hold on. We need to get one massive detail completely straight right from the start so people do not get it twisted. So yes, you do snap a photo inside that app. Once you download that app, you have to snap a photo of, you have to take a selfie and then take a photo of your passport. But those are just temporary digital tokens. They're not exactly biometrics. It does not enroll you in a permanent surveillance database, and mind you, no phone app, no shortcut, no corporate terms of service will ever waive or forfeit your constitutional rights to look at the system in the face and say, nope, I'm opting out. Okay? But the exact second I stepped up to that pre-clearance counter, my rights were completely denied, and I experienced gross workplace misconduct. I experienced my freaking rights being denied, and it's not cool because no means no. Anyways, so either he swiped or I swiped at my passport. As soon as that happened, all of my data came up onto his screen. He had full knowledge beforehand that I was a U.S. citizen and that it's within my rights to say no. Anyways, so immediately after the swipe, he tells me to stand in front of the biometrics camera so that I can get scanned. And that's exactly when I stated my intention very clearly and explicitly. I did not hesitate or stall. I looked him in the eye and I said, no, I'm opting out completely, which is my right to do so. It's my right to do so. It's my right to do so. Okay, it's your right to do so. Yet this man chose to act like a fraud and a liar. He completely ignored his screen, federal agency protocol, and threw a high-pressure compliance bluff right in my face. He actually had the nerve to argue with me, claiming that because I used the app already, because I used the app and already took the setup photo within the app, that already counted as biometrics, and therefore I'm locked into getting my face scanned again at the airport. He tried to intimidate me, threatening to penalize me and send my ass all the way back to the standard line as a punishment for standing my ground, for exercising my rights. Okay. When I refused to drop my guard, he took things to an entirely unhinged level and used a blatant threat against my family. He told me that if I did not submit to the facial scan, he was going to force me out of line and slam me with a mandatory 2-hour wait. I was traveling with my elderly mother, and I was absolutely not going to subject her to a grueling, exhausting 2-hour delay in a chaotic terminal just because a customs guy wanted to power trip on his badge. Okay? Because of that direct threat and the pressure of protecting my elderly mom, plus dealing with duress and exhaustion after a long trip, I ultimately decided to let them take the photo, though it was against my will and against my wishes, and that's not cool. Okay, I did end up taking the pictures because I was actively coerced, but I need to make this clear. What that officer did was completely illegal. What he did, what you did, was completely illegal. It was an absolute abuse of authority, and you are never supposed to be treated that way. I'm only telling you my experience to encourage every single one of you to try to opt out of this biometrics crap no matter what. And you should know, yes, that when you are in this very specific type of airport abroad in another country, yes, doesn't matter, your rights as a US citizen still stand. Okay? So please stand your ground against these fraudulent compliant bluffs because they're lying and you have a right to opt out of it, period. And so you might ask, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal with biometrics is that this process is 100% optional for US citizens. It's not mandatory. So the exact split second a government worker overrides your right to say no, that means that your personal sovereignty is dead. It's being actively compromised. And that's not cool because no means no. I mean, when did no mean yes? When did no mean that you get to coerce me and threaten? No. Okay? They want to quietly harvest your permanent facial geometry into a centralized tracking database to passively track your physical line of drift 24/7 across the entire globe. AI, stop making things so complicated. They just want to track you wherever you go, just mass surveillance, okay? You do not let them bully you, however. You do not let them lie about app protocols, or you do not let them use threats of lying. You don't let them threaten you to force you into submission. You state your non-negotiable opt-out early. Okay, if you are a US citizen, then yes, you state your intentions explicitly and clearly right from the start. Okay, you let the physical passport book do the talking. If you are a US citizen, this shit is 100% optional. It's not mandatory. Okay, yes, you can use these shortcut apps or whatever to cut the long lines in at the last minute opt out of biometrics. There is no term of service in any of these apps that say if you use this app, you give up your right to opt out. That's not ever happening. Okay, where was I? So you state your non-negotiable opt-out early. You let the physical passport book do the talking, and the exact moment an agent tries to force a biometric camera into your face against your explicit will, you stand firm, freeze out your excuses, and loudly or sternly demand a station lead supervisor right down to the booth to log the workplace violation live on the floor. Stand your ground, guys. It's your right to say yes or to say no. And I said no, and that was denied, and that's not cool. So I just want to spread more awareness.